This is the story of how Merab Dvalishvili, through his words and actions, managed to seriously piss off all of Dagestan, Russia, and many fighters from that region. At first, it might seem like the reason is just Merab's playful personality and his unique sense of humor. After all, whenever he gets the chance, Merab doesn't mind cracking jokes about Dagestan or its fighters.
You know how to preg check a cow, right? You have to put your arm all the way inside the cow.
I mean, we don't do that in my village, but yeah, maybe in Dagestan.
But in reality, this story runs much deeper and hits the rawest nerves of entire peoples of Russia. Merab, someone who knows both Russian and Dagestani culture very well, unintentionally revealed the most painful, sensitive issues that no Russian or Dagestani fighter wants to bring up.
Where are you from?
From Russia and Dagestan.
In this video, we'll break down exactly what Merab Dvalishvili said and did that made him enemy number one, not just for whole peoples of Russia and the country as a whole, but also for some of the sport's biggest names. Let's start with this. Merab Dvalishvili is Georgian and a proud patriot of his country. In Georgia, he is seen as a national hero, and every time he returns home, it feels like a celebration. Even more importantly, Merab has become a voice for the Georgian people. He speaks openly and casually about politics, history, national identity, and cultural issues. And in today's Georgia, these topics are hotter than ever. In interviews, Merab has often talked about Dagestan and even called Dagestanis their brothers.
And no, we are from same area. We are Caucasians. There is Caucasus Mountains, and then Khabib is other side. We are this side, like, and then we are like same culture people. Just only different we have. They are Muslim. We are Christian, but we are very close people.
But he didn't stop there. At some point, he began digging deeper into the history of the region and its peoples. He even started talking about the true origins of fighters who represent Russia.
We all know the Khabib and Islam, they are from Dagestan.
Yeah.
Khamzat is from Chechnya. Mosar Evloev from Ingushetia. So, like, I'm not gonna say occupy, but yeah, somehow the Russia take over those countries, and they have to represent Russia.
They have to bow down to Russia.
Yeah, and I say, when somebody asks me, Umar is from Russia, and that's why I said, no, Umar not from Russia, he's from Dagestan, he's Caucasian, you know?
And this focus on ethnicity and national identity is exactly what rubbed Dagestani athletes the wrong way, so much that it really got under their skin. Islam Makhachev, the UFC champion from Dagestan, responded in his trademark sarcastic style. Merab said that Umar is from Dagestan, not Russia. Merab lives in the US. He has no clue what he's talking about. Another UFC fighter from Dagestan, Share Bullet, fired back even more aggressively at Merab's words. Why don't Georgians like Russia? If it weren't for the Russians, Dagestanis would have taken over Georgia. They should be grateful. We side with Russia because it's convenient for us. Right now, foreign enemies want to divide Russia. But we are united, and we will fight back. And even at a press conference before his fight with Umar Nurmagomedov, Merab pushed the national issue even harder, mocking and provoking, as if he knew exactly how sensitive it was.
Of course he's not Georgian. He can't even represent Dagestan. He represents Russia.
For you,
Umar, I have a question for you. Where are you from?
From Russia and Dagestan. Laughing.
Merab hit Dagestani fighters where it hurts most, saying they're under Russia's control, forced to fight for a flag that doesn't reflect their own culture, history, or language. After the Soviet Union collapsed, countries like Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan gained independence. Their national spirit is rising, their culture's reviving, their politics their own. Many have distanced themselves from Russia to follow a new path. But inside Russia, the story is different. In its national republics, local languages and traditions are slowly being erased by the dominance of Russian culture. In 2018, schools made native languages optional, while Russian became mandatory. At the same time, Moscow cut regional autonomy and imposed a single version of history and literature. erasing local voices, and anyone who dares to fight for their identity, language, or culture often ends up behind bars. That's exactly what happened to Fail Elsinov, an activist from Bashkortostan. He spoke out for the Bashkir language, defended linguistic rights, and fought to protect Bashkir lands, sacred for the people's heritage. For this, he was charged with organizing extremist activities and inciting ethnic hatred. In the end, he got 4 years in prison. His case became a warning. In Russia, talking too much about national identity or culture can cost you your freedom. Now it becomes clear why Dagestani fighters cling so hard to Russia and lash out at any talk of national identity. They know, in today's Russia, a careless word can be branded as separatism. The criminal code even has a special article, public calls to violate the territorial integrity of the Russian Federation. The punishment, up to 5 years in prison. And if you say it online, up to 10. And this isn't theory. Every day, people in Russia get real sentences under this and similar laws, even for harmless posts or comments. Take the case of Ulker Gashimova, a woman from Dagestan. She ran a small social media group where she posted articles about Dagestan. In some posts, she wrote that parts of Dagestan historically belonged to Azerbaijan. She also criticized the Russian government and said she didn't support the war in Ukraine. For this, the court accused her of justifying terrorism and calling for extremism. Even her memes and casual comments were labeled extremist. The verdict? 4 years and 6 months in prison. And this is the reality UFC fighters know too well. As public figures with huge audiences, they can never touch these topics. One wrong word, and they could be branded separatists or enemies of the state. For Russian fighters, politics is off limits. They know they're being watched by officials, by law enforcement. Even a small mistake brings brutal punishment. If admins of tiny online groups get real prison time, imagine what would happen to world-famous fighters always in the spotlight. And Merab knows this better than anyone.
If you criticize anything in Russia, you go to jail. If you do protest anything,
you go right to jail.
Right to the jail. This is not democratic. I'm against the Russian politics, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of the other Russian fighters, do they disagree with you?
They just, no, they don't disagree with me, but they stay quiet because they are afraid. They don't want
to go to jail.
And Merab knows this all too well. That's why he turned into a provocateur, poking at a wound most people in Russia don't even dare to mention. Every time he brought it up, fighters bristled, struggling to keep their cool. What they really think about their peoples living under Moscow's control, no one knows. But Merab didn't stop there. From the very first days of the war in Ukraine, Merab posted photos with the Ukrainian flag and messages of support. At the same time, he openly called Russia an aggressor and an occupier. The backlash was instant. Russian fans flooded him with insults, calling him a traitor, a Russophobe, a coward, even worse. Many Russian fans never expected Merab to speak so openly about politics. Soon, his comment section filled with Russian flag emojis, as if marking him as the enemy. The tension grew even stronger when his fight with Petr Yan was announced. For Merab, it was the perfect stage to double down on his political stance, and to remind the world that Russia once occupied his homeland, Georgia.
2008, Russia occupied another part of Georgia, like this part, and then when I born, 1991, they occupied this. Once again, I'm gonna say that Russia is occupied, and the 20% of Georgia, Russia occupied.
Merab touched on one of the most painful subjects. After Georgia declared independence, Russia responded with brutal military aggression. In the early 1990s, Moscow backed the separation of Abkhazia from Georgia, a region considered Georgian land for centuries. Then, in 2008, Russia repeated the same scenario in South Ossetia, once again using force and violence.
When I was 17 years old, when Russia attacked to Georgia and they was throwing bombs in capital city, it was so scary, man. I want to be volunteer to go army and help my people, but it was so scary. When I was 17 years old top, I was doing judo at that time, but It was so scary, man. You can't do nothing. If they throw bombs, they die, you know?
The consequences were catastrophic. Tens of thousands of Georgians were killed. Hundreds of thousands lost their homes and became refugees. International human rights groups describe these events as ethnic cleansing. And even today, Russian troops remain stationed on Georgian territory. In the build-up to the Petr Yan fight, Merab made it clear, this wasn't just another matchup. For him, it was special.
First, this fight is not only fight, this is personal for me. He's from Russia, I'm from Georgia, and we all know Russia, what they do, what they're doing to Ukrainian now, what they did to Georgia. I have so many support from my country and so many support from Ukraine too.
He turned the fight into a symbol of justice, a clash of a small nation against a giant. In his words, it was good-hearted people standing up to an aggressor and occupier. Over and over, Merab said, this one was personal. And after he defeated Petr Yan, the very first thing he did was shout, "Glory to Ukraine! Glory to Georgia! Stop the war!" Later, in his post-fight interviews, he explained again why this victory meant so much to him and to his people.
We cannot stop Russia, so at least we can beat in sport,
But here's an important nuance. Not a single Russian UFC fighter has ever openly supported the war in Ukraine or Russia's military actions abroad. Take Petr Yan. He's never spoken about his position, but his manager, Said Abdurakhmanov from Kazakhstan, once said on a podcast that Peter does not support the war. Do fighters from Russia support the war in Ukraine? My friends and the people I work with, no. So, in Merab's eyes, Peter became the symbol of Russia and its aggression, even though Yan himself doesn't back what his country and army are doing. In general, no Russian UFC fighter has ever supported the war, but none of them have condemned it either. According to Russian sources, Khabib was personally called by Anton Vaino, the head of the presidential administration, and his deputy Sergei Kiriyenko. They asked him to publicly back the invasion of Ukraine. He refused, and 3 years later, he has still never voiced support for the special military operation. That refusal came at a cost. Reports say Khabib's accounts, real estate, and cars were frozen. A court ordered him to pay 306 million rubles, allegedly for unpaid taxes on foreign income. Then Russian riot police raided the legendary Nurmagomedov training hall, claiming a terrorist linked to attacks in Dagestan had trained there. Soon after, the gym was shut down. All of this, many believe, happened because Khabib refused to be used as a political tool at the very moment the government needed public figures to legitimize its actions. Russian fighters know now. The government can turn on them too. Look at what happened to tennis star Daria Kasatkina. In July 2022, she dared to call the war in Ukraine a nightmare and said she wanted it to end. The backlash was instant. State propagandists branded her a traitor. Officials called for her to be banned from representing Russia. Her sponsors dropped her. She was harassed endlessly. In the end, she fled abroad, changed her citizenship, and now lives in Australia. Even today, she says it's unsafe for her to return home. The same fate could easily fall on Russian fighters if they slip up. Today, government control in Russia is at its peak. One wrong word can ruin a career or a life. That's why no one knows what these athletes really think. Most likely, many quietly disagree with the government, but saying it out loud is far too dangerous. In the end, they're hostages, forced to avoid politics and national questions at any cost. While Russian fighters, celebrities, and even ordinary people stay silent, Merab speaks freely. He says whatever he wants, without fear for himself or his family. Neither Georgia nor the US will punish him for his words. Russian fighters don't have that freedom. They have to hide their real opinions. One slip of the tongue can bring the law crashing down, or unleash a brutal backlash. That's why no one really knows what they think about the war, about history, about identity, about politics. What frustrates them most is probably not even Merab's opinions, but his freedom. He can say whatever he wants, and they can't even argue back. For them, one wrong phrase could ruin everything. Merab, on the other hand, keeps speaking out, almost as if mocking the censorship and control Russians live under. And because his performances inside the cage are spectacular, dominant wins, non-stop pressure, he's earned the spotlight. That spotlight lets him speak even louder. Few athletes turn sports into a political platform, but Merab does it naturally. Every time, he makes his opinion clear. His dominant victories over Petr Yan and Umar Nurmagomedov only reinforced his message. Every win felt like more than a sporting achievement. It was a small step in the fight against occupation, imperialism, and censorship. As Merab himself put it, "I can't change the cruelty and politics of countries, but at least I can fight for justice and for something brighter through my fights."